So, Mantuary Podcast, Season 2, Episode 3. Let's jump into what I am carrying for the day because I know it's on people's minds. So, I'm still carrying the Hogue Deca. This is the CPM 20 CV variant with the Warney type of blade. This is their version of the crossbar lock, which they call the Able lock, which is freaking, I love it. I'm a big fan of this knife. I've been carrying it more and more. I've been just trying to really force myself to stay on path with whatever I decide to choose. So, in January, I did a set of videos and I talked about my actual carry that I want to do for at least 6 months. And I may deviate from it a little bit, especially as knives are sent to me by companies. And I kind of want to, I saw that Tri-State EDC posted about the Kubi variant, the variant, I think is what it's called. Some of those were sent to me by Kubi. So I might test stuff out every now and again, right? But that doesn't necessarily mean I get away from what I'm actually using. The actual dark earth scales for these G10 it's just, oh my gosh, it's just completely delicious looking. There's no easier way to describe this. I'm a big fan of this knife. Still rocking the actual C5 Tactical VAR watch. I'll take it off so you can see it a little bit better. This has a quartz movement just like any other mechanical watch. You are going to lose a little bit of time. I talked about this earlier on my live stream. This is a very simple watch. I like the fact that it's clean, it's minimum, it's pretty affordable, it's solar powered, so it has a reserve time of 6 months if you don't get any sun to it, but it gets sun all the time, even UV, because, it's solar powered, right? So a big fan of this watch overall. Now, the rest of my carry, because I worked from home, I didn't really see a need to just be walking around with a gang of stuff. So everything else was kind of neatly in my nutsack double admin pouch. And this pouch itself, I'm a big fan of it. It's starting to get a lot of patina. This thing just kind of follows me around the man cave. It follows me around anywhere I'm working. And it just keeps stuff just kind of nice and neat and just thrown in here. The most used item in here, hands down, is my iPod Touch. I'm always using this to kind of disconnect myself from the world. And I can use it without the Wi-Fi turned on. And then I'm also heavily using the Leatherman Free P4, which kind of sits in its sheath in here. I've started to finally use the sheath. I can't believe that, but modified that. It did a couple of modifications to it, as well as my Woobin X3. Shout out to Woobin, their 8th anniversary. So of course I had to throw them into the pouch, at least for a while, to kind of give them a whirl. So that kind of rounds out the things that are mostly being utilized throughout the day. And the final thing is the Chronicle by Marine X, shameless self-promotion. This is a notebook that I sell on my website, but I'm a big fan of this. It does have the grid paper on it, so it's easy for you to kind of just do your primary, secondary, tertiary task, anything that you might have to do for that day. I'm able to just write down, kind of have notes on things that I need to do. And I don't know, I'm a big fan of course, I'm a big fan of my own shit, of my own notebooks and all that other type of stuff. But it kind of keeps me square and keeps me ready to go at all times. Tactile turn pin on the side. That pin is no longer available, but I'm still a big fan of it overall. We got to talk about what's being smoked today. Put down what you guys carried today. I would love to know, what did you carry today? Is your carry over for the day? Are you still, carrying? You still got shit to do? Let me know all that stuff as well. But the smoke and the drink for today, we're going to be rocking the Rittenhouse Rye. Now, the Rittenhouse Rye is a bottled in bond. It's only 100 proof, but let me tell you something. I get mint, I get caramel, I get maple, I get honeysuckle, I get syrup. This is a fantastic rye coming in for approximately $25. Your mileage may vary. Okay, for me, it was $26 when I bought it at Total Wine a couple of weeks ago. It normally doesn't cost tons and tons of money. Pair that with a Ave Synchro. This is a Nicaraguan stick. This thing here brings all sorts of notes, $14 a stick. The thing I like about this, it's a peppery. It gives me leather. It gives me cedar. It has a very big floral. The draw on it's really, really big. This is probably the biggest gauge that I will ever mess with. Okay. This is probably the biggest gauge I will ever mess with. This being a 6 by 60 inches, if anything, this is about the max. But because of the flavor notes of this thing, I'm able to tolerate it more. I'm hoping that the combination of these two are an enjoyable combination. We got the Rittenhouse, which has a lot of sweet notes to it with that type of rye to it. And then we got the Arre which has a peppery flavors to it, leather, cedar, musk, all that type of stuff. So I'm enjoying these two, and I recommend you check either one of them out. I normally buy my Aves from jrcigars.com. This is not promoted by them, just kind of letting you know where I get them from. And then, of course, I get in Rittenhouse from Toto Wine. So that just talks about a couple of things that are what I'm carrying today, what I am actually smoking on. We did a V cut on this stick and all of that good stuff. And that kind of brings me to today in history. Today is Aretha Franklin's birthday and Elton John's birthday, two totally different genres of music. I have vinyls from both of them here in the man cave. If you have the ability to spin up a vinyl today, you know, stream it if you can on whatever music streaming service you use. RIP to Aretha. Even if you don't normally listen to it, just, you know, jam some of that shit today, maybe tonight while you're getting ready for bed. But something else that happened in history today, March 25th, 2002, a 6.1 magnitude earthquake happened in Afghanistan. Now, the reason I bring up the story is I think a lot of people don't have their emergency kits together. Now, I'm just going to assume that a lot of folks, especially out in Afghanistan, ain't got their shit together. Okay. It's assumed that a lot of folks don't. But in all seriousness, over 1,000 people died. Approximately 1,200 people died. 12,000 people were injured or maimed. And at the time in early 2002, we had just started parts of our invasion into OEF, Operation Enduring Freedom. So we had service members on the ground. We had Marines. We had soldiers on the ground. We were starting to build our camps. We lost this is how you know that the infrastructure in Afghanistan is not that great, that their safety precautions are not that great. Same earthquake happened in the country. We had troops in the area. We lost 0 troops from the earthquake. 0. And Afghan lost 1,000 civilians, meaning, you know, I've been out there. Their structures are horribly built. They can look like they can be blown over with a good wind. So I understand what all that type of stuff happened. I say that to say this, that if you are going through your kits, make sure your survival kits are all ready to go, whatever that means to you. If you're going to bug in, if you're going to bug out, if you're going to have rations, whatever, just make sure your kits are kind of good to go, because you never know when stuff may pop off. And I think that that's a key indicator. One thing I would say maybe you should not go for is Grail EDC, not for me. Super interesting. James Brand. I talked about this in a live stream a couple of days ago, and I was considering making this my Grail EDC not for me. And after researching this more, it has to be my Grail EDC not for me. Listen, the James Brand, I think that they put out some quality products, but this one particularly, it just kind of just rubs me the wrong way. I think it's because they lean heavy on their packaging and their name and some of the materials that they're using. And I understand they have unique materials, but for me, it feels a little icky. It kind of feels not worth it. So the Klein is coming out with a new variant. The new variant specifically is a made in America James Brand, which is very clear to say because everything that James Brand makes is not made in America. So that's one thing to think about. This is going to be a carbon fiber variant. This might be something that you guys are interested in. Me particularly, maybe not so much. This is using Magna Cut. It's using their very unique. It's like similar to a crossbar lock, but it's a little bit different. Not exactly a crossbar lock. They do offer a first responders discount, but even if it's Magna Cut, even if it's, you know, coming with the carbon fiber and the titanium accents with the pocket clip, and it's ambidextrous and it has a great flipper or a great thumb stub rather, $449 is a hard pill to swallow for me. It is a hard pill to swallow. Me personally, I love the packaging. Even the most simple of items that you may order, it's a straight great packaging for me. Put an S in the chat if you think this is a smash. Put a P in the chat if you think this is a pass. S in the chat if you think it's a smash. P in the chat if you think it's a smash. And the thing is, it's like, or pass rather, you can get a regular Klein, whatever that means, right, for $369. But the new variant they're about to drop, $449. It just feels a little too steep, especially when you have competitors that are offering Magna Cut. It's still a flipper, $250, $300 range, $200 range. Bradford Guardian just dropped. Now that's a fixed blade, but they just dropped one for $200. It's just too much competition using CPM Magna Cut. that doesn't justify this pricing. And so once again, I feel like that they are just leaning heavy on their name. And that's why it's easily EDC not for me. That brings me to a story I kind of wanted to talk about, guys, is April 8th, we're going to be having a total solar eclipse. They call this the worm eclipse. Here's a little picture of what this is kind of going to look like. This is on NASA's website. If you go to science.nasa.gov/eclipses, it will tell you about the upcoming eclipse. It's going to tell you exactly where you can view it, how long it's going to last for, all that type of stuff as well. And I'm kind of actually like, young Marine X excited about this. I used to nerd out about this type of stuff when science wise when I was a kiddo. Let me know if you guys used to did you guys go all in on science experiments? If you were a part of the science fair, did you actually participate or did you phone it in with a volcano? Let me know in the chat, because me personally, I went all in. I was trying to make boats float across water with magnets. I was doing all sorts of experiments with hypothesis and my analysis and coming out with the whole plan, right? But this here is a total solar eclipse going to be happening on the 8th. They talk about the safety and where to see it and all that type of stuff. The thing that I found interesting about this story is going to be going approximately across 8 states. You're going to be able to see it totally. I'm here in Dallas, Texas. It's basically coming right over me, which I think I'm kind of excited about. As mentioned, I think I need to get outside around like 3:50 a.m. in the morning for me to see the total eclipse. But your time, it's going to be varied for you. Go check it out. But you know what made it's super interesting, what I thought was really weird? There's a lot of conspiracy theories coming out around this, guys. There's a ton of conspiracy theories coming out around the eclipse. Like, why? Where are they coming from? Okay, and I don't care what your political persuasion is. I just think that some of these are funny. First off, Alex Jones says that he came out with an 8-minute video. He thinks that this solar eclipse is the Department of Homeland Security's opportunity to do something crazy to the United States. I don't know what he was talking about, but that's one conspiracy theory. Another conspiracy theory is that there is a major fault line in Madrid where earthquakes can happen. They believe that at the exact moment that the eclipse happens, we're going to have a massive earthquake where millions of people are going to be displaced. Hundreds of thousands of people are going to pass away. And I'm like, where do you get this information from? Did you just pull this out of your ass? Listen, I'm going to be one of those dorks who is just literally outside enjoying it. If I have to get some type of spectacle, some type of something for my face to keep myself safe, then I will do that. OK, but I am not too concerned about any of the conspiracy theories. If you are, I'm not knocking you. Expect for me to be one of the folks out there just literally just taking this all in. OK, the worm eclipse. It's named after that because of the Native Americans. According to our little almanacs and our history, this is a very rare event. If you have the opportunity to take this thing in, be a dork. Go dork out on this shit, man. Absolutely. I'm going to be out there making that shit happen, bro. Before I jump into the next story, guys, I want to talk about the sponsor of today's podcast, which is me. Anything on my website, use the code Mantuary for 20% off anything on your order today. There's a lot of crap that you may consider yourself maybe wanting to check out. You may want to get V2 of my coasters, which is just pound sand coasters, the Marine X coasters, anything that you can check out on the website. I just talked about the Chronicle notebook. Of course, that's 20% off as well. Anything you see on there, 20% off for the folks that are watching this. So good for you to be here live, because then you can tell people like, damn, son, where'd you find this and all of that good stuff. So shout out to me and all the creativity for making that stuff happen. And I appreciate any support there as well. Now, jumping into the next story. Listen, I thought this was very funny because my main job is, I audit defense contractors. So I audit the Raytheons of the world, Lockheed Martins, L3, Jacobs, Amentum, General Dynamics, General Aviations. I just rattled off a bunch of them. But the one that seems to be really in over their heads right now, that has to be Boeing. Boeing CEO is stepping down because of the 737 MAX crisis. I mean, doors are popping off. some of them are very unsafe. It has it to the point where Mrs. X is going to be flying to Orlando soon for a big cheerleading competition. And we were checking to see, well, what kind of plane is it? So I thought that was a very interesting thing, that the CEO, Dave Calhoun, is going to be stepping down at the end of 2024. And the chairman of the board is not going to go for re-election, which in essence means that he is going to be stepping down immediately. And it's an interesting story. Of course, we fly on planes and all that other type of stuff. But you know what I thought was most interesting, and what I thought was like the most disgusting part, is he has the ability, he being Dave Calhoun, to get $24 million nest egg. A $24 million nest egg, period. It's his golden parachute. If he leaves at the end of 2024 and stocks continue to plummet, they're already down 36% this year, or 26% this year. He still gets $24 million. If he's able to raise stocks by 37%, he can walk away with $45 million. I'm just so disgusted. I don't know why I'm so disgusted by how much these CEOs like golden parachute their way out at the end of a crappy job. If they do a shitty job, they leave with these big ass golden parachutes of all this money, and it just feels fucking icky. I don't know why it does, but for me particularly, I'm not a big fan of it. And I understand it. They went to the Wharton School of Business, or they went to all the Harvard Business School, and they got all these, they worked their way up, or they were hired in. I get how it goes, but it just still feels a little weird. Okay. Especially I got buddies that work for Boeing, work in defense, are turning wrenches on engines and planes. And, some of them are making like $18 an hour. It's like $36,000 a year. So it just feels a little bit icky. Let me know what you think about that. Have you guys flown on a Boeing airplane this year? I think I flew on one to Virginia a couple of weeks ago. And I don't know, it just felt a little nerve wracking to do that. Nonetheless, let's just say that. A little nerve wracking to say the least. Now, one thing I want to talk about is some upcoming EDC that I'm actually a little bit excited about. The Vosteed is tweaking their sheep's foot a little bit, and they're coming with the Tala. That's what they're calling it for short. The Vosteed Tala. Now, listen, this thing looks like it's going to be a workman beast. Okay. This is coming in with a 14C28N blade steel. Now, 14C28 blade steel, for me particularly, I'm a fan of that. I'm a fan of 154CM as well. But 14C28 blade steel is a Swedish steel, and it's a workhorse. It's easy to sharpen, has a good working edge. The factory edge is not going to last that long, at least to my understanding from watching the YouTube University of places like Neves, Knives, and Metal Complex. But the working edge can last a particularly long time. And it does have like this, instead of thumb studs, it kind of has like this, what do they call this thing? Like a thumb rocker or whatever they call this shit on the side here. I like the way this looks. The contrasting colors, the micarta blade, the orange thumb stud, and just the kind of like the unique, it's like a modified sheep's foot kind of sort of. That's kind of the vibes I'm getting from it. So overall, thumb disc is what they call this thing. So you can get it in multiple colors. It's ready for pre-order now. $72. It's kind of rocking. It's kind of, I kind of like the way that's working out, man. I actually kind of like the way that's working out. Different blades, different variations of this overall. I think that this may be a fair outcome. They have a good warranty. It's their version of the crossbar lock. So their version of an axis lock, right? If they can call it something like that. And this is something that if you were trying to find a good beater, but something that you can sharpen relatively easy, this looks like this might be something that you can dive completely head first in. Now, I know I showed you that Klein earlier, which was recently released, right? But this Vosteed is looking super interesting as well. And that's actually might be one that I pick up just for the sake of doing stuff around the house, that I have a beater that is like very aesthetically pleasing. Let me know. S in the chat if you think this is a smash. P in the chat if you think it's a pass. Understanding that this thing has especially if you don't already own a sheep's foot, this might be something that you might want to check out as well. S in the chat if you think it's a smash. P in the chat if you think it is a pass. For me, I think I'm leaning towards, I don't know, man. I think I'm leaning towards a smash. Must do maintenance of the week. Listen, every week I like to talk about some maintenance items that you absolutely should be looking to do this week. And if I want to report, did you guys actually do your springtime cleaning, pressure washing, cleaning the vinyl of your house, making sure that there's no cobwebs or wasp nests being developed on the outside of your house. Comment down below if you've already started your spring like maintenance of your house, or if you're in an apartment, did you go out on your patio, make sure a dove nest is not being built on your patio because you weren't out there all winter. It happens in an apartment too. Okay. Doesn't matter if you're a house or an apartment. Let me know if you've already started your spring, maintenance of the place that you stay at. But this week, I want you guys to organize and clean your power tools, whether they're gas or electric. I want you to really focus on the organization and the maintenance of those items. Here I have one of my battery systems. This is from Metabo HPT, stands for Hitachi Power Tools. This battery is done. Like, I cannot get this thing to charge to 100%. That lets me know that some of the cells in this battery are dead. Now I can take it apart because I think these are running on 18650 batteries, or I could just buy a new battery. But the indicator for this is that I have like 9 or 10 of these big ass 20-volt batteries. This one particularly will no longer charge to 100%. So I'm going to take this to Lowe's or Home Depot. I'm going to recycle this thing and I'm going to pick me up some more. So check your batteries. It doesn't matter what battery platform that you're in. You can be in, Milwaukee or Bosch or Metabo or whatever. Just make sure that you're actually doing some maintenance of your stuff. Another thing I want you guys to take a look at this week is your bits. Okay, so this is some bits that I have for concrete. Now, these are my concrete bits. Some of these are not ready for prime time anymore. I've used them quite a bit on mason. These are masonry bits in general. I had to use these on some brick recently. And I know that some of these need to be replaced or sharpened. I'm going to sharpen them because I have all the shit here to sharpen them. You may not have the tools to sharpen stuff or whatever the case may be, but take a look at your bits. See if you need to buy any more, not just like bits that are going to be, for drilling, making holes, but also just your common bits that you may use. See if you need to buy any more impact rated bits. See if you need to buy any more bits to just drive fasteners into walls. Are you missing any Torx bits? Of course, we all have tons of Phillips and flathead bits. We're not or slotted bits. We're not worried about that. But check out the rest of your shit. See if you need to restock any of that stuff. Make sure that you're not going to be asked out this spring or summer when you try to start a maintenance project, because I think that's very important. Another thing I want you to look at in particular for the maintenance of your power tools is make sure that the exhaust part of your power tools are cleaned out. So wherever your tool exhausts itself at, if you need to take a cotton swab and hit it with a little bit of alcohol, make sure that stuff is here. So for this particular tool, it exhausts here on the side, so I can actually feel the air leaving the tool right here. And I know to just make sure that that's clear, doesn't have any obstructions or anything like that overall. So just check that out. So check the exhaust, make sure that you're not going to have a clogged weapon or tool. If you have tools that are brushed, check and see if you need to replace the brushes or if they need any maintenance to them. All my tools are brushless, so I don't have any issues with that. But another thing you can do is wipe your tools down. So this obviously is just a flashlight, so it doesn't have any exhaust on it, but I still can wipe it down. I've used this thing throughout the winter for painting and for different maintenance and drywall or whatever. And so I may be assumed that the LEDs aren't working properly because I couldn't see very well when I just really need to wipe them down. Okay. So take your tools, take them out, wipe them down if you need to. Make sure that everything is kind of good to go. Check your batteries as mentioned earlier, just to make sure that you're good for that type of stuff as well. If you have larger tools, so this is my SDX Max by Metabo, and I use this thing for busting shit up, right? Tile, whatever. For this tool, I have to ensure that I go through and make sure that there are no loose parts. The handle doesn't come loose. That that the exhauster absolutely cleaned out. But for something this big that rattles so much, you need to ensure that there are no loose parts before you begin to use it, because you could literally take off a limb with a power tool of this type of size. Okay. And the last thing when it comes to your maintenance for your tools is any tools that have not been used, when you fire them up, let them warm up before you start. Weed whackers, lawnmowers, even if they're electric, give them a little bit of time to stretch their legs out. All right. Don't get all gun ho and all that type of stuff. Check your spark plugs, check your fuses. If tools have fuses inside of them, some tools are super complicated, but whatever you got going on, check your power tools this week, get them ready for whatever you may have planned. And thank me later. I will appreciate that. Okay. Listen, guys, thank you for stopping by for another Mantuary podcast, another Man Cave Mondays. I need to edit this stuff. If you're a channel member, this will be live for you instantly. A lot of things you could have did, but you came here, hit the subscribe button, join the battalion. I would love to have you guys a part of it. We will speak soon.